The OSHA Act was passed in 1970, right around the same time as the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, other environmental laws. And when it was passed, it was a very good, very strong law.
Hundreds of thousands of worker lives have been saved as a result of the agency because of the different regulations.
People went out and used it, and to good effect, and there's no question. But for the OSHA Act, we would not have seen this sharp drop in fatalities that we have fortunately experienced over the last 35 years.
But the bottom line is that the OSHA Act is now 40 years old, and it's essentially fundamentally the same. It's never been changed.
The daily toll of injury and illness and death in the American workplace is completely unacceptable. 16 deaths a day, thousands and thousands of workers injured, uncounted thousands developing occupational illnesses, and tens of thousands dying every year.
Although the principle of providing a safe workplace for all American workers is noble, it doesn't even come close to actually being that in reality.
Many more lives, thousands upon thousands of lives, could have been saved had some of the regulations been stronger, had employers taken the initiative, and if the agency actually had more resources to do more inspections.
There has been a lot of attempts to improve that law.
We have strong environmental laws that are enforced. We have strong consumer safety laws that are enforced. It is long overdue that we have strong laws to protect workers on the job and that they are enforced rigorously and consistently.
Corporations have too much political power in this country, and workers and the people, the common people, have too little power.
The numbers come out to a jumbo jet crashing every day of the year with workers on that jet that are just trying to make a living and support their family, and instead they're getting exposed to hazards and dangerous chemicals that are taking their life away.
I saw my mom and dad crying so bad. She was asking for help. They were outside of my house, asking everybody for help. To tell them, one of them to tell them that it's not true, that my brother didn't get killed. I saw my mom's face. It broke my heart when I see them cry. I couldn't do anything to help them.
If you have a loved one who's murdered, you would be in constant contact with those police detectives, with the police department. You would have the right to sit in the trial. If the prosecutors are working out a deal with the perpetrator of that crime, they would probably keep you informed of that.
The right of family members to participate in the process, and it's family members and injured workers, the right of those groups to be directly involved with OSHA during the course of an investigation is a really monumental breakthrough in workplace health and safety.
In the case of someone whose loved one is killed on the job, they do not have access to the OSHA inspectors to talk to them about what happened. They do not have access to the violation notices other than what's considered public record. They do not have the right to sit down with OSHA before OSHA goes into negotiations with that employer. And the Act would expand all of that and give them that opportunity. Several years ago, there was a young man who was killed in the agricultural industry. He was killed, he died by suffocating, actually, in grain. And I remember his father talking about the incident and talking about, obviously he didn't have access to the OSHA investigation reports or any of that information or photos from the actual scene of where this incident occurred. But what he did see was his son's body. And he talked about the look on his son's face and talked about just the horror that he knows his son suffered in the last minutes of his life. And if for no other reason, I think that's why things like Protecting America's Worker Act need to be put into place to protect those families and to protect those workers so that 5,000 families a year don't have to go through that.
The Protecting America's Workers Act attempts to improve safety and health protections and improve enforcement of the job safety and health laws.
There are probably 30 million employers in the United States, but only about 1.5 million employers have to report to OSHA.
Most people don't know that the Occupational Safety and Health Act leaves out and doesn't cover millions of workers, primarily public employees who live in states where the state doesn't have a safety and health law. So we have over 8 million workers who have no legal protections in this country. Under the current law, workers have got a right to raise safety and health concerns, file a complaint with OSHA. They're supposed to be protected against discrimination, but the procedures in the law are so weak that they just don't work.
It would basically not allow employers to intimidate workers, discourage them from reporting injuries or illnesses, which is a major, major problem that currently exists. The current Protect American Workers Act would increase the amount of fines that are levied against employers for being out of compliance.
It gives OSHA a bigger stick to go after certain employers. It strengthens the penalties for willful violations of the OSHA Act, and those are violations where the employer knew or should have known that conditions in that workplace could cause an injury or death.
We have workers killed in this country, die as a result of an OSHA violation, a workplace hazard, that the median penalty, the one in the middle as far as the average case here, when this is looked at, it's $3,700 a year. $3,700 for a worker death in this country. That clearly is not a deterrent to employers.
It's a misdemeanor. With the Protecting America's Workers Act, that will change to a potential 10-year prison sentence and a $120,000 fine, which in my opinion still isn't enough, but it's something. So that's probably one of the most important parts of this act.
We have to find ways for the government to be able to instill fear in the hearts of supervisors who would otherwise ruthlessly and callously abuse their own employees.
The corporate interest in the employer interest lining up against stronger safety and health protections is pretty formidable.
I think that big business and corporate America has always been powerful, and it remains powerful. And that's one of the reasons why, after nearly 40 years, the OSHA Act has not been amended.
I think most of the public don't know. They don't know the extent of workplace deaths. And we have millions of workers injured, disabled every year in this country. They think that some of these conditions that they were from decades ago.
One thing that's quite clear is that workers have never won power, and powerless people of any kind have never won power without a very broad public base for that power. And it's going to take quite a struggle, quite an exercise of that power to get this kind of progress in the Congress.
You've got a piece of legislation that not only is enhancing the government's power and the government's enforcement authority, you also have legislation which is enhancing worker rights. And it's that change in the power relationship which employers really fear, I think, more than the increase in the government's authority.
But because of the current administration and the current makeup of Congress, this is really the first time since it was introduced by Senator Ted Kennedy in April of 2004 that it has a remote chance of passing and being enacted into law.
It's a high time that the Congress took action to fix the problems in the law and send a very clear message to employers, the responsible parties: shape up, we're tired of this kind of abuse.